What's the worst coworker you've ever worked with? Welcome back, guys. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already for these daily videos. Fast food, third shift. The only other employee stayed in the bathroom doing blow. How the f can you afford coke on a fast food paycheck? You sell drugs to cover most of your living costs via cash, then pay essential bills with your legit income. This guy drugs. My coworker likes to initiate conversations, then does long pauses where you go to say something back, then he cuts you off and keeps talking. He has entire conversations almost entirely by himself. He also likes to make changes to my paperwork before it's turned in, ends up riddled with spelling mistakes while he tries to make the content look smarter. Fortunately, it's all electronically stamped with who made revisions. My boyfriend does that weird conversation thing. Sometimes I just try to talk over him. Sometimes I leave the room. He still doesn't know what I'm talking about when I bring it up. My current suspicion is he's formulating the next sentence during that phase. Either way, it drives his mum and I insane. I couldn't imagine dating someone where when they talk, it drives you insane. Worked with a girl who would sometimes just lay on the floor and play on her phone. She would routinely flip out about something her boyfriend did and just start screaming curse words, sometimes in front of customers. She was eventually fired for smoking weed while on the clock. Every time I think I'm a fuck up, I read stories like this and I feel better about myself instantly. I had a manager once who dumped trash on my desk for my third day there. She said it was to remind me that taking out the trash was part of my job description. It wasn't. I was a research assistant at a mortgage firm. Whoa. Had the same issue. We had a full maintenance crew, but my department had previously helped with parking lot trash until our hours were cut, which was discussed and mandated from corporate. The top guy for our location came in extra early, picked up the parking lot trash, and dumped it on my desk. Then, he berated all of the managers in front of everyone for my department. Just the tip of the iceberg when it came to that asshole, though. How does higher management not do anything? Are they all just as shit as him? Higher management probably doesn't really know who does what at the company as long as it gets done. After all, it's middle management's job to deal with the workers. Context: I work in a hospital as a nurse's aide and my department focuses on transporting patients around the facility for testing and room changes. I work night shift and this person started their shift at 6 a.m. There was this lady I worked with that just had the nastiest attitude. Normally I can get along with most folks, but this person just brought the whole room down with negative vibes. Nothing was ever good, and she always had bad shifts. One thing she did that upset a lot of people was take patients down for x-rays and leave them down there to return to our office. The big thing to remember here is that even the lengthiest x-rays take maybe 10 minutes at the very most, 2 to 5 minutes on average for the scans. Every morning we got x-rays to do and I had to send her back down to return patients to their rooms after the x-ray technicians called right as she got back to our office. The instances of leaving patients were common, so I informed my boss several times in person and email. Apparently she had an attitude with every other department we worked with and never informed nurses that we were moving their patients. Big no-no when meds and vital signs need to be done. One day she had abandoned a patient in the ER waiting room when they were waiting for a ride home and told no one, so security had found a patient just sitting alone for 15 to 30 minutes without supervision. I took this and a year of recorded evidence for this person to finally get fired. When that happened, it's like a dark cloud lifted and a lot of people were relieved. Oh, and she tried to get various employees around the facility to sign a form to argue against her case. One person signed. Lol at the form signing. Oh my god. My deepest terror is that I am that person at work and that no one would sign that form, but hopefully neither of us are those people. Not necessarily a co-worker, but my oldest supervisor literally told me not to think, even if it's wrong that I do things her way, and not to ask questions because I should already know what to do. I had just gotten the position. My wife talked about a supervisor her first husband had. When he, the husband, had an idea about improving their methods, the supervisor, who had a really strong Chicago accent, think of Saturday Night Live, De Beers, would say, "You don't think, I think, and you do." I don't know how good that was. No contest. It was the literal crackhead I worked with for 4 months that was also secretly living in the office and being completely nonsensical when he was actually working. We found a mattress folded up in the warehouse after he was let go and an actual brand new crack pipe with a price tag on it to boot, squirreled away back there. He and his family, not just him living in the office, left discarded food everywhere, like pizza crusts in the toilet brush holder in the bathroom, what even, and they left hair in the sink in the bathroom as they were obviously bathing in there too, as we had no actual bathing facilities in the office. One day during his tenure, he sent an email saying his alarm didn't go off and he'd be in at X time, which kept getting moved back later and later. He eventually shows up at 4:40 PM and we closed at 5 PM, lol. See comment above about secretly living in the office. There's so much more I could go into. It was a wild 4 months, that's for sure. His girlfriend was always around at work, and she would move in a way that you would absolutely never see her face. We thought maybe she had a warrant out for her arrest or something. I think only one of us saw her actual face, and she would also sit behind the warehouse bay door in their Nissan Altima, with it running all day for the AC when she wasn't back there with him. He wanted us to hire her to help him, which wasn't happening. Our warehouse area was concrete flooring, which didn't get cleaned often at all, and she'd walk around back there barefoot. As mentioned before, he was completely nonsensical at work as well. He suggested to my coworker, who scans our old documents to PDF via a feeder on our copier, of course, that she should take a picture of each page with her cell phone and do it that way. I got multiple emails from him that made no sense at all, and I eventually had to just forward some to my boss so he could see what was going on. It was a sad situation, but also a what the f situation for the rest of us. He brought his girlfriend to the interview and asked if she could sit in on it because it was so hot outside. Now, if we don't have a Walmart and a huge shopping centre within spitting distance, that might have made sense. But that was pretty unprofessional, and they still hired him. All we did was lose money by employing him. He worked on one pro bono job we did and managed to fuck that up. That was at an engineering firm, by the way. When I was an intern, there was this old shrew that would call people into her office, my cube shared a thin wall, gossip, then call all those people in to tell them what was said, etc. She would try to frame people for shit she did wrong. She was so arrogant, and she refused to adapt to workforce modernization. Example, she refused to learn how to hyperlink in emails, documents, etc. A real ray of sunshine she was. I worked somewhere in the last 3 years where they hired a secretary who refused to use a computer. I couldn't believe it in this day and age. I worked in a law office with a secretary who refused to do anything because she didn't know how. She couldn't do documents in Word, scan or use the billing software, and refused to learn. In a crunch, she would take things home for her grandson to do. My worst coworker was one I worked with when I was a cashier at Walmart. She approached me and asked me to cash out her paycheck. I was still new at the job and never got training on how to do that function. She was sympathetic, so she walked me through how to do it. Transaction over and done, I go on about my day. I get called back a couple of days later by my managers, and they circled me in an office and accused me of stealing. After tears, videotapes, and telling them what happened, they told me that apparently this co-worker of mine had stolen not only from me, but several other people that day as well. They just wanted to confirm I wasn't in on the deal. F Walmart and f that bitch for almost getting me arrested. Hired a cook on a good recommendation. He was just fine the first 2 weeks. Then I noticed food going missing. Then supplies started going missing. Then a customer told me that he had been adding auto 30% tips to his food purchases. When I looked at the books, I saw that he had been adding 30% tips to all the credit card sales, and the cash rings were often from what should have been sold. I fired him that day. The next day he came in and apologised, said he was on drugs and was going to rehab. I wished him well. The next day he tried to break in after close and was caught. Idiot. Me reading your comment. I hired a cook. Oh, this is going to be about drugs. I've only ever worked with great people. I mean, oh shit, it's me. All my co-workers are so cool with me wearing flip-flops at the construction site and letting me work half as much because I don't have the correct shoes. I worked in childcare, and they had hired a new assistant/trainee teacher for my room. Each room had 2 teachers. She just constantly argued about the dumbest shit and always tried to argue with me about both company and state childcare policies because that's dumb. Also was late every day to her first week there. It all just started adding up until I was changing diapers and she was holding a 2-year-old child in her lap. I see a child biting another child and say, "You need to go help them," as I have a child in the middle of a very explosive poopy diaper change up on the changing table and can't leave him there obviously. She doesn't get up. I repeat it and she says, "Well, I have this kid on my lap." So I say, "Take him off your lap." She responds, "He's strong," like this grown-ass adult is unable to move a 2-year-old off her lap because of some weird super strength. Then the child bites the other child again, and so at that point I'm mad and tell her to get up and help them now. She then proceeds to say, "So what? I have to watch these 4 kids while you just have 1 up on the table, like I'm somehow supposed to have multiple children on the table at once to make her job of sitting on the floor making sure kids don't get bit twice in a row easier, and our ratios were 4-to-1 anyways." I finished my diaper change, stuck my head out the door to my supervisor and told her, "Get this lady out of my room." And they did after, and wrote her up after reviewing the footage of the incident. She was fired for no call, no showing the next week. I've worked with a lot of idiots in childcare, but she was so shitty in such a short amount of time. This is about 15 years ago, but the office I worked in instituted a scent-free policy. One woman, who was already insufferable, was so offended by it that she snuck in her perfume collection. She'd walk down the halls and spray perfume into empty offices or cubicles when no one was looking or before everyone arrived in the morning. This went on for well over a month or two, and we had no idea who was responsible. My co-workers and I started referring to this mysterious person as the Chanel Bandit. She was finally caught on camera in the act. She'd left for 3 weeks vacation and was unaware that we had installed cameras after a break-in. Some of us already suspected her, as the Chanel Bandit mysteriously stopped spraying while she was away. She quit right after she was caught. None of us were sad to see the other cedar-scented psycho leave. Whoa, can't believe I got that one first time. He would walk in every day like it was his first day with no memory of anything we showed him the previous day. He was only focused for the first 30 minutes, then the rest of the time would be on his phone and try to work with one hand, which is bad because I work in a restaurant. Can't cook with one hand, but that didn't stop him from trying. Then one day, he just stopped showing up for like a week, then was confused when he came back and was fired. I'm not sure if he had memory issues or anything like that, at least he didn't tell us or the owner. He did, however, like to talk about how easy our job was because he'd had 4 other restaurant jobs before this one. He was only 19, but we didn't make him do anything complicated, but he would forget easy things like where we kept burger buns or where buttons were on the register. Also, he always left trash laying around after he was done with a job. It would be me and my other co-workers who cleaned up after him, and his excuse was always that he didn't think it mattered because it was going to get cleaned up eventually. He still comes in every once in a while to watch our TV, sometimes with friends and sometimes by himself. He never buys anything, but he just does it quietly so no one bothers him. This guy named Daniel I used to work with at McDonald's in high school. He let everyone know he worked out and enjoyed being on the football team. He had this thing about taking 5 shits a day. He would walk by on his way back from the toilet, chest out, shoulders back, and triumphantly announce, "That's shit number 3. Daniel, let a man announce his shits." I worked with a guy that regularly Googled everyone we worked with. He knew information about the apartment we had just sold and told everyone at our department meeting how much we sold it for. That sucks, but it's good to remember how much of our lives are available to the public. Real estate sale prices are almost always public information. I work with this guy that tries to convert people to his religion every day. It's super annoying. I work with a really nice guy at my old job, added him on Facebook, multiple Bible study videos every day. He didn't say anything about religion at work. That's how you do it. My dad's parents were very Catholic. If they cared that my parents raised me and my sister in a secular household, they never showed it. I worked with a guy who couldn't learn new skills. When he started, he had to learn new programs and processes, just like anyone would at almost any job. He couldn't pick up on it, whether it was where to click in a software to get a certain result or how to fill out a report. Everyone on my team took turns showing him the ropes and it never sunk in. I remember being so frustrated because he could not figure out how to minimize a window. Top right corner, click on the straight line. It took 3 to 4 seconds for him to drag the mouse to the corner and then he'd hover around it but never on it. Super nice guy, but impossible to work and collaborate with on projects because so much time was wasted. I worked on a certain touring exhibition last summer, it's not Potter, FYI, and of 200 people who were applying for jobs, 20 of us got the job. We were all close-knit and had a love for the exhibit content, and being all genuinely interesting people made us a family. Bar one woman. She thought she was the world's biggest star for having a 3-second cameo on Game of Thrones, and sent harassing messages and calls to many of us. She sexually harassed a lovely guy on the shop team who had no interest, undermined the bosses constantly, talked back, was rude to customers. When she thought we talked about her behind her back, she got defensive and spiteful. We didn't. One day she got knocked back for good by the shop guy and for some reason decided to take it out on me. Started slabbering about me to every other co-worker, but never to my face. She called me a white snake. Now I am albino and my hair colour got me seriously bullied in school along the vein of her insults, so her name calling was very hurtful. I had enough and took it to HR and she was fired for her actions. I could go on, but she doesn't deserve any more thought. I agree. And that's a good place to end it.